Monday, rawmike.richards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI studios in downtown Toronto, and also heard exclusively on Sportsnet The Fan 960. Coming up today, we're thrilled to have a great guest, and I mean a great one, Grant Fuhrer. The doc/movie, also produced by Roger Sportsnet, Making Coco. They're going to get into some areas of Grant Fuhrer's life that are beyond just what we recognized in his play as a goaltender. He's very forthcoming in this documentary, in this film, about some of the issues that he faced, and some that were kind of known to the public. But I would say, you're going to get a little inside his head on what it was like being Grant Fuhrer. Really looking forward to that interview. We'll also go through the weekend and the CFL. That was a crazy game. The Stamps and the Hamilton Tiger Cats trading blow by blow all the way through the first half. Stamps eventually take it. Now, could that be a preview of a Grey Cup? Well, look, if it gets played like that, I'd be happy with it. The only thing I think they have to worry about in the East is crossover. And does that bother you? If it's an all-Western, and we've seen it before, Grey Cup, does it devalue our national championship?
Nope, just makes it better.
Says the guy from Winnipeg. Also, we'll take a look at the NFL, talk about our gas cans of the week. Not that hard to find them either. There are a couple of teams. Ooh, there's going to be a lot of drinking in those towns. Not that I'm against that. Not that I'm not. So we'll do that as well. We'll also take a look at some hockey action. Flames in China. I don't know if the city's pronounced Sichuan. I'm just saying Sichuan, Dave.
You're doing good.
Yeah, I think it's fair. And I'm not saying Beijing. I'm not from there. Not a lot of Chinese in my family, unless we order something. Okay, so get off my back.
How often does that happen?
Ordering Chinese food?
Yeah.
Oh, that's my dad's favorite thing.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because honestly, I go probably 5 times a year tops.
I'd say I've lessened that.
Okay.
Because my family also really likes Thai. They like Thai food.
Sure.
Like Jordan likes it a lot. But just as long as I get me those the long ribs.
Yes.
Called one place and said, "Oh, we're not the pork. We don't do pork." Yeah, and we don't do you. Don't do pork. Everyone knows that. Give me the long ribs. That's what we like. The barbecue spare ribs. That's what you like. Here's what I don't like, and I'm going to start off, strangely enough, with college football. People talking about the fake fair catch, if you want to call it that somehow worked against a really crappy Arkansas Razorback. I mean, this is one of the worst teams they've had in years. They're playing North Texas, who, by the way, isn't a horrible team, not a horrible program. The Mean Green,
undefeated, by the way, the only Texas team undefeated.
They're a small school, but they compete in everything, and their football program is not bad. Granting that it's a smaller school. So does a fake fair catch ring anything for you? When I even say that word, see, our good friend Jay Barker put that out there, and he said, "Hey, this is a must see." And I went, fake fair catch. Okay, right away, I don't like it. And I'll tell you why I don't like it. Here's how it happened. You can watch it a bunch of times. If, again, you're watching this live or later on rawmike.richards.com or our dedicated YouTube channel, here's what it looked like. Here's what it sounded like on the weekend. Once again, Arkansas punting to North Texas.
And that will be appreciated. A little spinner on that. That's a smart play to catch that at the 10-yard line there by Keegan Brewer.
Wait a minute.
So North Texas has come into Fayetteville and shown
he's never made a fair catch.
Now he's running.
A fair catch signal.
He's gone.
Brewer down the sideline. This is going to be a touchdown. He caught that at the 10. Nobody thought he was going to do it, and he took off.
Yeah, I was thinking to myself, I didn't see a fair catch sign, but he kind of stopped. Everybody else stopped.
This is in Arkansas, by the way.
There was no whistle blown, and away you go.
I quickly admit, I stopped.
Listen up.
So they're going to replay it, and they show the guy. You're trying to see if he waved. Did he make an action? He kind of didn't. And then he goes.
And that's when I looked away when he stopped still.
Okay, so the thing that strikes me is people say, what a great fake fair catch. Well, number one, that's really, you can't have a fake fair catch. Either you make the signal, or you don't. Here's why it's a problem for me. It worked because the guys in North Texas, the coaches, who sit in the quote-unquote dark room, the guys who watch what we used to call film, I don't know if they call it that anymore, they are familiar with this really crappy Arkansas team, especially on special teams in their coverage, that they kind of give up. They saw at certain points when they run down, because this was decided just seconds beforehand, if they don't follow through on punt coverage, there's a chance if you just catch it and kind of stand there that they give up. That's what they saw. That's why they did it. What I don't like is when people start talking about these little gimmick plays or a fake fair catch, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. And you know what's going to happen, Dave.
Ooh, yeah. Lower the boom.
Someone's going to say, I'll take the 15 yards and obliterate the guy. Because guess who would be doing that? Yeah, you're listening to him right now. If there's any sort of shenanigans with whether the hand came up or whether there was waving and there's any confusion, that's what that will do. Football is trying to stay away from these kinds of things. Just watched the NFL this past weekend on trying to avoid people getting hurt, especially the quarterback. We understand it, but there were some calls on the weekend in the NFL I looked at, and I thought, okay, well, that's clearly not a penalty, but because it was Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there were a lot of things that happened that make me a little nervous about the future of football. But getting back to this, it wasn't a fake fair catch. What it was an Arkansas team that just is not disciplined enough. They're lazy in their coverage, and they got burned by it. But I'm hoping, Dave, and praying that all of a sudden teams don't try to – I mean, the fair catch was brought in to eliminate guys getting blown out. That's why in Canada you have the 5 yards. But the fact that people got excited about it, let's call it what it was. Garbage coverage. But I hope I don't see a wave of guys trying to do this, because if I'm special teams coach, I just have a bad feeling that somebody said, well, we'll take the 15, but if they're going to start – pretending or a half wave or whatever it is, when I mean dangerous, I'm saying dangerous. I get that it worked, but I'm not in love with it.
No, it's a massive danger if something like that goes the other way. So what happens if coverage team blows up the guy on the 10-yard line, and people sit there and say, oh, he kind of waved. He said, no, he didn't. He did not even remotely come close to that. Also, in a situation like that, you only get to do that once in your life. Because guess what happens the next time it's remotely close? Yeah. It's like you said, they'll take the 15-yard penalty and have a couple laughs quietly in the dressing room going, see, I told you.
See, the back judge would have to blow the whistle, and then you would hear a whistle during the game, which is what they go back for. But there was no whistle.
Nope.
And the back judge didn't call fair catch because there was no fair catch. But that kind of stuff makes me uneasy. I don't think it's a great play. I think it's an embarrassing play, and Arkansas this year is an embarrassment. They've had a lot of great years. This isn't one of them, so let's not get too enamored with that. But the one thing that I enjoyed, if you want old school CFL football, that's what you saw at Hamilton. Again, I don't know if the defensive coaches are crazy about how it got traded back and forth, but when you take a look at what the Stamps needed to do, they just kept throwing punches, and eventually they got it done. Bo Levi Mitchell finding enough guys enough times, but it was, again, when I take a look at it, a lot of special teams as well. Crazy game at Tim Hortons Field on a weekend.
The same effect, so from a safety point of view, and we know how big the league is on that right now.
And here's a pick, and Larry Dean looks like he has a pick six. Touchdown, Hamilton. Pats with the #1 pass defense in the CFL, drop 9. Bo down that far rail and way overthrown, and an injury on the far side of the field, and Tavares Daniels went down just suddenly. He was clutching his.
Okay, so this is again in terms of the turnovers, what happened. Stamps can't really afford to lose more guys, by the way.
Play action. And accumulates some more yardage here, finding Tasker.
It's really special. Those are, fantastic men and great friends for a long, long time.
Liram Hairolahu.
Oh, it's nice to see that he makes them occasionally.
Not often. Not often.
Yeah.
Third CFL team, by the way.
Flicker looking for
Flea Flicker. I like it.
And what a toss by Markin Michel. Little razzle-dazzle here from Dave Dickinson, Bo Levi Mitchell, Markin Michel. Longest drive for Calgary so far. Lots of time for Bo.
Here comes the rush. He throws, and it's a touchdown. Markin Michel dances in the end zone, and Calgary's on the board.
This is the way that it went in the first half, back and forth. People saying a preview of the Grey Cup. It's certainly a possibility, but remember that the last 2 games, they're talking about this, win streak by the Ticats. 2 of them were against the Argos, and the Argos are barely a franchise this year.
Yeah, careful with that evaluation if you're thinking it's going to be the Ticats. Couple things. So the Stamps led by a point at halftime. The big story in the second half, 2 major bombs. Reggie caught one for 99 yards. Also, Terry Williams returned a punt for 83 yards. That was significant. Bo Levi Mitchell, 17 of 30, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and 10-2. That's the bottom line right there. 10-2, first place in the West.
If they have relative health, I'm not changing my opinion. I still think the Stamps are probably the best team in the league. But as you know, and those listening that are Stamp fans, you're giving them the roll of the eyes and the so what. Because until they lift that Grey Cup, and I'm serious, it doesn't matter if it's a great game. It doesn't matter if there's some kind of comeback or whatever happens in those 4 quarters in the Grey Cup game, unless you see Bo and Dave Dickinson laughing with each other, holding up a gigantic Grey Cup, it will be a failure. This is the hardest thing I think that I've seen in Calgary in a long time in terms of trying to keep your energy and your emotions up when you know each and every year you have the best team and they still find a way to not win your national championship. So as crazy as some of these stats can be, David, I don't think it really matters because until they lift that Grey Cup, and I still think they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I mean, who's number 2 in the CFL?
Oof. I think it's from the West. I think it's probably Saskatchewan right now, even though they laid an egg this weekend.
They were terrible.
I don't get that at all. So is it Saskatchewan? Is it Edmonton? By the way, Stampeders are on a bye week, so they will be sitting out until week number 16 where they host the Toronto Argos.
Yeah.
Woof.
Yeah. Thank you.
What's that line going to be, 27?
Have a holly jolly Christmas. That's what that is. Oh, my God. So, speaking of gifts that people thought they were going to receive and didn't get, I'm talking about Johnny Manziel. So you have to figure out that there he is on the sideline watching Rupert Pupkin.
Is that his name?
He's the starter. And guess what? I get it. He's deserved to be the starter. I get it. So is there at any point, Johnny Manziel, who's been the good citizen, does he crack? Does he start saying things that maybe he shouldn't say? You decide. This, once again, property of ESPN and courtesy of ESPN, this is what he had to say, and it's starting to leak a little bit.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's hard for me not being out there and playing. You know, I think back to, a quote Coach Sherman had whenever I first got here that said, this has to work and this will work. And I feel a little frustrated at this point right now, because I come off the injury, I'm not getting a chance to play, and then I'm sick. I miss a couple days of practice, and now I feel like I put myself way behind where I need to be. So, I'm struggling in my own mind, trying to know exactly what my role is. I'm not a third down, short yardage guy. I don't have much of a role in the game plan, I really feel like, and it's hard to stay in it to that. So, I hope this organization, I hope the people here haven't lost faith in my ability to play, and I still get a chance to come back and get a chance to be in with the ones and play, because that's what I came up here to do, and that's what I want to do. They traded half of, an organization, I feel like, in terms of what they gave up to get me here. I would think, I would get a chance to come in and still play, and that's where maybe it's a little bit lost on me, because I felt like I was brought in here to be a piece. I had a lot of faith in me the first couple of weeks I was here. Obviously, the first week didn't go as well, but we built on that the next week. And, since then, missed the games because of concussion and then not getting to play once I was back it's been frustrating for sure, because I felt like there was there was a lot of hope and a lot of faith in me being the guy here. And how quickly that's changed in 2 weeks is tough. It's just the reality of the situation right now. If the club had faith in me, I feel like I would be the guy. I felt like I would have been the guy after I came back from the.
Well, this probably goes on and on, as it did, and I would say that his biggest problem is he's losing out to a guy who played his college football at Tiffin.
Oh, is that a fourth division school or a fifth division school?
Tiffin University. I think they're known as the
Laserbeaks.
They're in
spiders.
What the hell?
Squirrels. Minnows. Am I close?
The undergraduate and graduate degree programs offered at the main campus in Tiffin, Ohio, so it's in Tiffin, at the University of Bucharest in Romania. What is this? What Romanian things are?
You might be on the wrong site.
No. They're Div 2. They're the Dragons.
Oh,
the Tiffin
I like
Dragons.
that.
But I'll say this about him.
Way better than the Minnows.
He deserves to start.
Yep.
He's played really
He'll
well.
be starting against the Bombers on Friday.
And don't you think it's just a little mean of the universe that all of a sudden a guy comes from apparently a university that's associated with one in Bucharest, Romania, where I think vampires do come from. I mean, I'm pretty sure this is
Romania. Yes,
this is what happened.
I can confirm that.
So he's losing out to Vlad at
Yes.
quarterback. Isn't it just a little mean of the universe to do that? Because you can't put him in, Dave.
Nope.
Doesn't make any sense to put him in.
Nope. Now it does. After Pumpkin throws for 95 yards in an entire CFL game. What is that, a Bo Levi Mitchell, like the first drive of the game, basically, 95 yards?
Probably.
Well, he did that in the entire game. Woof.
That was pretty brutal. By the way, we talked about this sometimes beforehand, but that is teams in the NHL that have to travel to Sweden, Finland. Start the season over in Europe. You've got now some preseason, or I guess if you want to call them exhibition games. You had the Flames and the Bruins in China. I don't know if I'm digging this a whole bunch, to be honest. So the Flames play the Bruins in Sichuan.
You got it.
And the crowd was enthusiastic, I will say that. They cheered everything. Of course, I think they have to, or once again, you get the guy standing in front of the tank. By the way, speaking of things that work once, that's one of them. Hey, why you do it again? No, don't. I wouldn't try it a second time. It might have worked because the Western cameras were there. Otherwise, not a great prank.
No.
Once. So the one thing I would say is if you're a Flames fan, Monahan looked really good. Depending on, again, what you're going to take away from games in China, and once again, property of the National Hockey League, I guess the Flames and the Bruins. Here is hockey in Sichuan.
Here's Johnny Gaudreau in with Monahan. Gaudreau off the boards, out front with a pass. They score! Mark Giordano on the back door.
And with opportunistic guys like Johnny Gaudreau right in the middle, and then Mark Giordano, like John Moore in the first period where he left his point position, recognized there's an opening, and similar shot.
They dropped it back.
See, you're loving that. Number one, the recognition of when a guy should, a defenseman should come in off the point. Giordano obviously has that skill. I thought they worked it well. I thought at times the power play looked pretty good. Monahan's other goal was during a power play, a nice wrist shot. Looks like health-wise, I know they talked about it. Mark Giordano talked about it a little bit after the game, saying, well, he looks healthy. I think he's going to have a big year, and I guess he's going to have to. But, once again, I think just recognition at this time of the season, just seeing that kind of movement. If I'm the coach, I'm looking at him going, okay, well, it looks we seem to understand. We recognize certain situations. It was a good goal.
It was, yeah. You look at the lineup too. Pretty much, I'm going to say at 80% capacity of a full lineup. Gio, Monahan, Gaudreau, Lundholm, Kachuk, Hamonic, Bennett, Neal, Frolik. Just some of the Flames that were involved. Outshot the Bruins 46-20. They play again in Beijing on Wednesday morning at 5:30 Mountain Time. So it's going to be a couple days break. By the way, split squad tonight at the Saddle Dome. It's the Flames and the Oilers. Sorry to say it, but it is going to be a B style of group for both teams.
Oh.
It is a split squad. That's the way it is. At the Saddle Dome, 7 o'clock tonight.
Maybe someone can email or tweet me. Was that Beasley doing the English calls? I assume he was doing the English calls in Sichuan. I mean, that freaked me out. The all of a sudden he knows Chinese. And by the way, speaking of knowing Chinese, Josh Wong, who might be listening today on Sportsnet, the Fan 960, a big-time producer. Does a lot of stuff for ESPN. I know he's done stuff for MTV, all kinds of things. So he gives me his cell number. And Josh, this is true, so don't complain. He gives me his cell number. I call it, and here's what I get, because he wants to go out. Because Josh, I'm not talking to school here, but you go out a lot. So anyway, he says phone my. So I phone the cell, and here's what I get. I'm like, I didn't know what to say. What do you say? I said, hey there. This is Mike Richards calling, And I'm not sure if this is Josh Wong, but if it's not, Gung Hee Fa Choi.
Ooh, good one.
You know how I know that.
Yeah, you recovered well.
The Mandarin. It means happy. And I get this phone call back.
Yeah.
Josh Wong. Richards, what are you doing? Why are you wishing me a Happy New Year? Because I didn't know what all that stuff was off the top. You know, I watched some Kung Fu, but I wasn't catching a lot of the other stuff.
True.
He goes, that's my name in Chinese. Really?
Oh.
Why are you so mad?
Yeah.
Why would that's your name is Josh? That's a one syllable.
Why do you have to be so mad?
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. You're listening to RaulMikeRichards.com, watching on the dedicated YouTube channel, or on the website, or, of course, right here on Sportsnet, the Fan 960. Taking a look elsewhere, and as we said, coming up in a couple of minutes here, we're going to talk to Grant Fuhr, who, has one of the more interesting stories in terms of his background, the things he went through, and look at the players he played with, the teams that he was on, and what they won. I think in terms of history, if I'm looking at goalies in terms of a historical significance of what the teams he was on and what went around him, historically, he might have been a part of some of the biggest and greatest moments in the history of the NHL, some of the greatest players that ever played, maybe the greatest teams. I look at so Patrick Waugh. So where are we starting at number one? If we're looking at goaltenders, is it Brodeur? Is it Waugh?
Oh, jeez.
I'm not putting Ken Dryden, by the way. Ken Dryden is not in this conversation.
You know what?
Bernie Perrant, maybe?
I'd go Patrick Waugh, even though the numbers say it's Marty Brodeur, just based on wins and top shutouts and all that kind of thing. But I don't know. See, Grant Fuhr was on a different era, though. When Grant Fuhr sported a 375 goals against, it was like that's very good. In today's NHL, that's borderline American Hockey League.
Yeah.
So
and again, it's styles of play. I mean, if you used to watch ESPN Classic or when you watch the NHL Network and you see games of a certain era, you just see the way that it was played. But what I specifically mean is that what he went through, not only was it the times that he played in, and he talks very openly, by the way, about substance abuse, all those other things. But like Patrick Waugh was on some very good teams where he played great hockey, but I don't know if historically, do I look at those teams like I'm going to look at the Oilers?
No.
I don't think that's true.
No, not at all. I look at the 80s Oilers, sorry Flames fans, as the greatest teams in the history of the sport. That's how good that is. It's funny though.
I don't think the Montreal Canadiens, if people want to argue, okay, what about the Flying Frenchmen and about their dynasties?
The 70s, exactly.
But Ken Dryden didn't have to. I mean, Ken Dryden sometimes saw like 10 shots in a game. Where Fuhr was getting a lot. They said, but the shot that he needed to save, Dave, the one that he saved that they needed that big save, usually was a game winner, even if they won 6-4.
Exactly. And the other thing, too, is, and we'll get more into this with Grant in a bit, because we've talked to him before, friend of the show, obviously. In the 80s, the top 5 teams at any given time, if you juggle them, were the Oilers, the Flames, the New York Islanders, the Winnipeg Jets, by the way, who just happened to be the 3rd best team in the best division almost in the history of hockey, and then you kind of make a debate. But the Oilers every single year would have to get through either a Jets or a Flames team just to get to the conference final, just to get to the Stanley Cup final. And there's an argument to be made that was a tougher task than sweeping the Boston Bruins or knocking off the Philadelphia Flyers or sweeping the Islanders in the first of many Stanley Cups. So you kind of look at that and you go, man, the beginning of the climb to the top was tougher than the actual peak of the mountain for the Edmonton Oilers. And man, that, I don't think the Canadians had that sort of rebuttal at the beginning of a Stanley Cup run for themselves.
There's the Flames had that weird video. There was a time, I think, in the 80s where they thought it was great for teams to do music videos.
Oh, that happened everywhere. NFL, remember Jim McMahon and the Chicago Bears after they won the Super Bowl against the Pats?
Have you ever heard of Forgive My Misconduct?
Yes, I have.
Okay. I've never. So John Davidson, there's another Calgarian.
There you go.
Hosts this because he's doing this mock video countdown when videos were of significance and video shows were watched. Now I believe they're all spares. No one gives a ass. No one cares. But at the time where these countdown things and video shows where every city had one. So John Davidson did one with the you got to see Marcel Dion in this thing too, who is really enjoying the fact they're doing this. This is the kings of the time. Simmer's in this thing. Forgive my misconduct.
And now to HTV Hockey Television's Video Vote Showdown with John Davidson.
Hi, music fans. John Davidson here, and you're just in time for our Video Vote Showdown. We've got 2 really fly videos for you this week, and remember, it's your job to call in and vote for which video you want to win. Our first clip is by 3 happening NHL stars Charlie Simmer, Dave Taylor, and Marcel Dion. They make up that hot group, the Triple Crown Line. They've got a great tune called Forgive My Misconduct, so let's kick back and take a look at that right now.
Awful.
So you didn't think twice. You threw me out. You're cold as ice. You gotta believe me. I was out of control. I'll never break the rules again, 'cause you're my only control. Forgive my misconduct. Forgive my misconduct. Please forgive my misconduct. Last night.
Okay, that's garbage. And then they're doing stuff that just...
Woof. It sounds just as bad as it looks, by the way.
I don't feel very good. You're watching, listening to rawmike.richards.com, either on the website or the dedicated YouTube channel, or, of course, right here on Sportsnet, the Fan 960, looking at the NFL this week. And, you know, some of the, I mean, I'm not even talking about our picks here. And generally, you know, when I'm talking about sports, I'm talking about how much we gambled, how much we won. I did not win this weekend.
Nope.
Victor was very close again. Very close. Did not win. But to me, some of these teams in the NFL, we're going to get to our gas cans of the week. It can be a player, or it can be a team. And I got to be honest, when I take a look, yeah, where's the gas can? Hold on, let me just find some. Where did it go here? Okay, that's not it. Oh, here we go. This is magical here. Oh, you can't hear because it's on 2 things. Gas can of the week to me goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Like just you know, you don't have to have any of those landmark phrases like we know who they were and we let them off the hook. Well, you knew who this team was, and not only did you let them off the hook, you opened up the door, made them some sandwiches, asked if they wanted a massage, and
I think
then,
you even gave them steaks, not just sandwiches.
Let's just say it was a happy ending for
anybody that plays the cards. Yeah,
they're pure garbage.
Yep.
And as much look, the reason I'm throwing them this way is because people had a certain, I guess, hopes for them. They've always been a burner for me. I mean, they've always been a fade for me. The Buffalo Bills aren't a gas can to me because they came to the stadium with the gas can. They didn't set themselves on fire. Hey, trust me, that bus is burning before they get to the stadium. I don't know if they win a game. I truly don't know if the Buffalo Bills will win a game. It's hard to do what Cleveland does in previous years and lose every single game. That's really hard to do. But at this point, if I'm looking at the Arizona Cardinals and what you have built, Arizona should be embarrassed. On that list, I also look at the Washington Redskins this particular weekend, and Alex Smith, horrible against a Colts team that just, you know, they're just very mediocre. You're playing at home. I thought they would do better than that. And the Houston Texans, this is not the season I thought they'd have. So there's your gas can as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I agree with the Cardinals. 6 points in 2 games. If you're doing the math at home quickly, that is an average of 3 points per game in the first 2 games. I just thought of that right now. Buffalo is a gas can. I think they are. It's almost like, it's funny because there were rumors that Donald Trump, before he was running for president, was interested in buying the Buffalo Bills. It almost looks like he may have bought them secretly because the way this team operates with people retiring at halftime, you know, honestly. But my gas can, more personal than anything because I'm not a fan, but I did bet on them this weekend. I had the Minnesota Vikings -2.5 points, and their garbage-ass rookie kicker that beat out Kai, whatever his name is, gassed 2 overtime field goals to win in Lambeau Field. They scored 22 points in the fourth quarter to tie the bloody game, send it to overtime, and then Daniel Carlson shanks 2 field goals in overtime, including one from 35 yards. By the way, a convert is 33 yards. Misses a 35-yard field goal with no time left in overtime to lose at Lambeau Field. If he connects on one of them, the Vikings cover the 2.5 points. They don't. I think Daniel Carlson should be looking for a job this morning.
It's not like we haven't seen a Minnesota kicker miss before. That's what I thought was so weird about it.
There's a lot of garbage kickers this weekend, too.
Jason
Myers for the Jets. Cleveland, yeah. Zane Gonzalez was garbage as well. Miami's kicker, I watched that entire Dolphins-Jets game, which was so many bloody mistakes.
Also surprised me. I thought the Jets would be good to take that one as well.
He missed a convert. I don't know. They're just, hey, kids, if you want a job in the NFL, practice kicking right now. There's going to be plenty of them.
I was sort of surprised at now people are saying I don't like the tie. Do you like the tie? I hate the tie.
No,
I think if you can't get it solved in that amount of time, it's not baseball. You're not going on forever. You're not going till the sun comes down. At a certain point, people are saying, well, why don't they go then to the sort of like the mini games like you see in college, like you see in the CFL, where you have the so-called shootout, where if you do get a touchdown, then you got to go for the 2 points. That's another rule because they've altered obviously the way that overtime is decided in the NFL by adding it so one field goal just doesn't decide it. Do we need to have a decision in football? Can it be a tie? Because I think sometimes it can be a tie.
Yeah. I just find it really hard to believe that we've seen 2 ties in the first 2 weeks of the season where either team couldn't score a single point in 15 extra minutes. How the hell do 2 teams, especially when you look at that Vikings game yesterday and the week before with Ben Roethlisberger, you have quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, 3 out of the 4 teams that were involved in ties in the first 2 weeks of the season, and you couldn't score a single point to win the game. That's really frustrating.
To me, I think the frustration is going to be, some of those calls. I know that Clay Matthews got one there towards the end of the game that was significance, but then there was also one on Minnesota where Rodgers goes down, and it felt that like it was, if that's excessive, if that is considered excessive, he doesn't weigh 50 pounds. Like you're taught to at least finish your tackle. It wasn't late, it wasn't dirty, it wasn't low. And I got a feeling that you're going to see more that day, but I thought that was a terrible call. A terrible call.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure where we're going. Again, even when I look at the future of what football looks like, I'm not like a lot of these people say, well, at one point maybe we won't see them. But the reality is, and it's not, we can talk about player safety. We can talk about the quarterback safety. And everyone says, yeah, they're all on board with that. To a degree, I understand. Do you think that the NFL is that dire to make sure that player safety is first? Because I think it's money. I think that safety also equates to lawsuit. So are you more interested that David Bastel's hurt, or are you concerned about in the manner in which he was hurt, and are we liable? I think they're 2 very different things.
Yeah.
And because of insurance, because of the concussion protocols, and the nature of that sport, which is very, very violent, how do you avoid lawsuits? Well, clearly, their answer seems to be, well, we have to stand up in terms of, or at least call it player safety.
Right.
But if that's a penalty, if that's what we saw against Aaron Rodgers, I don't know, man. I just, you've eliminated most kick returns.
Pretty much all, yeah. You're right. And I think there might come a time where, there may not be that.
Well, I think they just might start at the 20, the 25.
Yeah, it's like, here you go. You're 1st and 10 on the 25.
Special teams, the taxi squad, all that kind of stuff. It was some of my favorite football.
Guys make the team. That's your introduction to a roster by cracking that special teams. A friend of mine that lives in Winnipeg, he's a firefighter now with my brother, Neil McKinley. He caught on with the Bombers as a special teamer because he had a nice CIS career, caught on, worked with Dave Ritchie, and he was a hired gun. He was, when that ball was kicked, you're getting that running start, and you're a heat-sinking missile. You know all about special teams, and
it's great to coach. It's a great really position to coach.
And you almost have the most raw, the most active, the most character people on the entire roster play on special teams, and you'll almost get that 9 out of 10 teams, if it's college, if it's Pee-wee, if it's high school, whatever division or I guess style of football it is. The special teamers are kind of the heart and soul of the entire team.
Even made a good movie, Philadelphia Eagles, Vince Papale.
There you go.
Those scenes were awesome, by the way. That movie is still one of my favorites. And Mark Wahlberg, there's one point where he's going down on special teams and he gets obliterated on the sideline. That was real because he broke a rib. They wiped him out. That wasn't a stunt. They just kept going, and him. He's big enough to do it. He's got some good speed, pretty good athlete.
Yep.
He got just wiped out. And you'll know the scene I'm talking about. It's right by the sideline. They kept it in there. That was a great film, by the way.
That was a really good film. The only thing I think it was missing was, there wasn't enough trash talking because I wanted Wahlberg to come back and say hello, hello, your mother.
You're not that tough, I don't know if they, and what's his name playing the coach? It was Greg Kinnear.
Kinnear, yeah.
Yeah, so he comes out after the one special team. This is where I really appreciate how close the movie was. The first game against Dallas. And so he comes walking out, and of course, why am I drawing a blank tonight? It's terrible. The coach of Philadelphia at the time, Dick Vermeil. So he's playing Dick Vermeil. Kickoff coverage, first kick, first time he gets out there, and he kind of slows up in his lane. Guys are just sitting there watching television, probably getting a beer, eating their chicken wings, whatever happens to be, nachos. And it would have seen on television, just like there's the kickoff. He brings it back like 17 yards. They started, it's a first and 10 for the Cowboys at their 20-something. And Dick Vermeil is just beside himself. He goes, I put my reputation on the line for you. And you slowed down on me. And you stopped on me. Do that again, you're off the team. And people, it would have been oblivious, right? Like, who's watching guys in their lane on special teams? That's why I like the movie. Because guess what? That is what you're saying.
Yep.
He put his entire reputation to take a bartender, and he puts him in the NFL. He's now on national television on kick coverage against the Dallas Cowboys, and he slowed down. People are like, that's what you got from that movie? That's exactly what I got that from. That's the football geek part of me. That's what I love. I'm like, I would have said the same thing. Like, that's what I would have said to Russell. There's no doubt. Russell, do you think you'd try hard on special teams? Do you think you'd run down there and make? He's not even picking up the microphone. See, he's so lazy. He's not even picking up the microphone. Is what I'm saying.
So he's not a special teamer. Is Russell?
Oh, he's special, all right.
Is Russell the kicker we're going to cut?
Yes.
Yes.
I heard someone talking about TFC. I haven't talked about. I haven't even.
They still play.
They beat
the Galaxy.
Yeah, so Zlatan was on that team.
That's the only reason I saw it is because of the goal.
Boy, he looks like a prick.
Yeah, he does look like a prick. That guy needs a good punch in the face.
Yeah, it's like, okay, you're the tough guy in soccer. Right?
Is that like being called a hopscotch champion?
Yeah. Go play junior hockey. Pick a go to Red Deer. See how long that lasts. Go to Prince Albert. You know what I mean? Just he's like, they have to play by my rules. No, I don't know why I did that accent. I'm just saying he's got some accent.
Yeah.
By the way, does that sound Swedish at all?
No.
Zlatan Ibrahimovic?
Not at all. I thought the guy was like a Russian mob boss.
Yeah, and he looks like one.
He does.
I think he kind of likes that weird. We just talk about Romanian vampires. Would you cast him as a vampire? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm putting him in my top 5.
And we've seen some players who are more vampire-like on the football pitch. Luis Suarez, by the way, might be the best Vlad the Impaler that we could think of. What would you do if a guy bit you, though? That's what I don't. What would you do in soccer? Look, in boxing, and you're facing a freak, and Mike Tyson decides, I'm gonna bite you off. That's probably gonna happen. You probably can't stop it. But I'm just saying, if you're soccer and you kind of go down, there's a little bit of guys going at the ball, and all of a sudden you feel a bite. Wouldn't you? And it's not like it only happened once. There's some great memes of him, by the way. Luis Suarez. Yeah. You're watching Raw Mike Richards or listening to us. Could be Stitcher, or was it Stitcher? Is that what it is? iTunes. You're even on Google Play. You can go in, talk to your Google Play girl. By the way, do you get weird with the Google Play girl? Because I find Because they can.
I do not.
You can
no.
put in like a nickname.
Yep.
And so I come in. I'm like, hey Google, how you doing today? I'm just doing fine, schmoopy. Like you can put that in there. I know. I guess I'm getting lonely. In a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to the legendary Grant Fuhr. The documentary film is called Making Coco. And I'm sure these days, I mean, that title in itself, Dave, in this politically correct world,
Yep.
you got a few people kind of uppity, I'm guessing. What do you mean? We'll talk to him about some of his circumstances in becoming sort of that legend. And I think because of the era, and as we mentioned beforehand, the nature of the NHL at that time, I think there'd be a lot of people necessarily, Dave, that don't put him as a top goaltender. Historically, they put him on that team because historically it's what they won.
Mm-hmm.
But, you're going to hear Slats in this interview. At some point he said, well, I didn't want to draft him because I didn't think he was any good.
It's crazy, too, just to hear that. Do you want to hear the draft year before we get to that?
Yeah, let's do that.
So, of course, the greatest player in the history of the world was drafted number 1 in 1981. It was Dale Hawerchuk.
That would be Dale Hawerchuk for 5 points?
That's right. Then there's a little bit of a hiccup at number 2 and number 3. We won't get to that. I'll just get to the notables. At number 4, Ron Francis went to the Hartford Whalers, Hall of Famer. Grant Fuhr went at number 8 to the Edmonton Oilers. And here's the first hiccup of the draft. Montreal Canadiens drafted at number 7. Former Leafs assistant general manager Mark Hunter. So they went Mark Hunter instead of Grant Fuhr.
Yeah.
The Calgary Flames had a hell of a draft in 1981. In the 3rd round, they selected Mike Vernon. Mike Vernon was a very good goaltender and a Stanley Cup champion. In the 1st round, with their 15th overall selection, Hall of Fame defenseman Al MacInnis. Very good drafting by the Calgary Flames that basically solidified what was arguably a top 3 team of the 1980s as a franchise with 2 cornerstone pieces in Al MacInnis and Mike Vernon.
I'm pretty sure the story goes that Mike Vernon, who while playing junior, and so he was still in Calgary, he heard that he was drafted on the on a car radio.
Oh,
now,
really?
And Mike, you might be listening. I mean, you might be listening now, and there's a lot who know the story here in Calgary. But he, can you imagine? You're in high school. Think of what you were like in high school. You turn it on. By the way, here's an update. Dave Bastel's been drafted by the Winnipeg Jets, and you're in high school.
Yeah, and you're listening to it in a car.
Yeah.
Wow. Never forget that moment, ever.
Like the orgy,
That's pretty cool.
The orgy I'd be having that night would be unparalleled.
It would, eh?
Roman emperors, Caligula. Yeah, Caligula, who used to throw like midgets off a cliff and watch them fall.
I am not familiar with them.
Yeah, that way. Hey, fun stuff. That's a fun fact. But honestly, finding out that's incredible.
That is.
So we're going to track him down. He's in California. But the documentary, Making Coco, that you're really going to want to see, we have it here. We're going to play it right before we get to Grant Fuhr. Yeah, it's on an email there. The trailer that was sent by Dave, should be right on your email. I do want people to see it, because to me, there's some lines even in the trailer that are almost, what would I say? They're almost shocking, but it sort of lays out in some ways why his story is so interesting. So on the other side, we'll talk to Grant Fuhr from Sportsnet. This is Making Coco.
Growing up, nobody wanted to play goal. I thought the equipment looked cool.
I watched Grant play. He wasn't very good. I said, I'm not drafting this guy.
I don't block shots. We need a better goalie. When I'm at the rink, it was my sanctuary.
He was never black to us.
And once I'm on the ice, I control everything that I do.
Listen, I've said it before. He's the greatest goalie ever lived.
You don't win Stanley Cups without having a good goalie.
We were lucky to have Grant to lead us out of that dressing room.
One of the best goalies ever, and then one of the hardest guys to score on.
city lives and dies by the Oilers. I can see that grinding on somebody like Grant.
It was revealed he had a substance abuse problem.
Banishment from the NHL for drug use.
He's always denied it.
You're all of 20-some years old. You're not supposed to have chest pains and have panic. You play in the National Hockey League. But hard time. You don't panic on the ice.
That, of course, Making Coco is the name.
Grant.
Hey, Grant, it's Mike Richards from Raw Mike Richards. Thanks for joining me here today. Appreciate it.
No problem. How are things?
Well, we just showed the trailer. And I gotta admit, even, sometimes you see a trailer, you're not sure exactly if it's setting up what you think you're about to see. And they touch on so many issues about, things that are even non-hockey for Grant Fuhr that, for someone like yourself, when you're the subject of a documentary, a film, and it's going to be so heavily watched, when it's said and done, when they finished it and you saw the final thing, are you okay with it? Is this what the message that you want to get out, and did it get everything out that you wanted?
Yeah, I think we covered everything. I mean, that's kind of the life I've lived, so I think that was the fun part of doing it, is we get to cover the whole life, the good, the bad, the ugly, the fun, so kind of everything.
And the one thing that comes up in the trailer, and the one thing that they're going to talk about in the movie, which is so inherently Canadian, because I fall in this category too. They start talking about the Hall of Fame, they start talking about you, and they said, yeah, the first black guy. And then you kind of, from wherever you're from, you're like, oh, that's right. I forgot. There's not a lot of places in this world, I don't think, Grant, where people just kind of didn't see the color. And look, I'm sure that's not your sole experience, because I know you're going to say otherwise. But for most of Canada, it was more about you than it was your color. Or do you think that's an inaccurate statement?
No, I think that's a perfect statement. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing being north of the border is in Canada, they think of you as an athlete first and foremost, and color's not really an issue. I think once you get south of the border, then color becomes more of an issue than it's ever been in Canada.
Did you have that growing up, Grant? As far as when you played outside of Canada, I know we've talked to PK Subban on this show, and he's kind of echoed similar responses to what you said. In Canada, it's a completely different show, but you know what? You were playing in the States as well. You were playing on the East Coast, West Coast, everywhere in the NHL city that there is NHL city. Was racism part of the 1980s when you were with the Edmonton Oilers at that time?
I think it was more of an issue now than it ever was back then. I mean, also I wear a mask when I played, so
yeah.
I mean, whether that made a difference or not, but you didn't see a whole lot of it. I mean, yeah, you get the odd guy. You always get the odd guy sitting in the stand somewhere who's got something to say, but for the most part, I got through pretty unscathed.
Your film debuted at TIFF last week. We've heard nothing but rave reviews here in the city of Toronto. When people are watching this and listening to this worldwide, like we're getting a lot of responses right now on our YouTube feed, where can they find this documentary, Grant? And it's very impressive, and I congratulate you on it.
Thank you. Once we get through the premieres, I got a premiere in Calgary coming up here on the 29th. Then we're going to be in Edmonton in the middle of October. And I believe they're aiming to have it released on iTunes, Netflix, and video on demand somewhere early in the new year.
Well, Grant, being for one of the premieres in Calgary, so Calgary people cheering an Oiler. I got to tell you, that doesn't happen a whole bunch. I don't.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Well, you know what? Sorry, go ahead.
I got to say, I was pretty impressed that it's been sold out there for a month and a half now. So that says a lot about the people of Calgary.
Well, the great hockey fans, and as I said earlier on the show, I said, in terms of even winningest goalies or save percentage or the teams that had won Stanley Cups, I think for you, because of your circumstance, because of even the teams that you played on, historically, you may have gone through more things with more great players on more great teams, the roller coaster, than almost any other goaltender I can think of, because it's not a Patrick Waugh-like story. It's not Brodeur. It's not Bernie Perron. You had so much going on, and yet I think at the end of the day, Grant, with all that going on, because at times it must have seemed circus-like, You somehow held it together. So who gets that credit? Or do you credit yourself for finding your way?
A bit of it's myself, but a lot of it's my friends, my parents. I mean, I've had the same friends since I've grown up, basically, and they've always been around through good, bad, ugly. So a lot of it's having good friends. A lot of it's just having good people around you. I mean, I had fabulous teammates. Glenn Sather was fabulous. John Muckler was fabulous. So I've had a lot of really good people around me.
If there are those that struggle, the younger guys that play right now, and let's say it is substance abuse, let's say that's one of the issues, amongst many things. I think probably, we're talking about depression, we're talking about a lot of different things. Do they reach out to you necessarily? Are you open to something like that?
Well, I'm definitely open to it. I mean, I've gone through it, so I know the good side of it. I know the bad side of it. I know the ugly side of it. And yeah, a lot of players are afraid to reach out to the league because you don't know what the league's going to do. I mean, yes, they've got some steps in place, but at the end of the day, they're still about the punishment side of it. So, unfortunately, players will reach out to somebody that's been through it. And I've had a couple of guys reach out to me, and I've coached a couple of guys that have been through it. So, yeah, I actually enjoy helping people with it.
It's funny when you watch the trailer, Grant, and you see Glenn Sather say at the beginning that I didn't think he was that good. I kind of chuckle at that, and I go, man, wow, because I flash back to one of my first experiences when I became a media person and working in this industry, and Glenn Sather I first met him in the late 90s, and Ken Hitchcock were the two most intimidating people that was first introduced to this field that I'm in today. As a coach at that time, what was your relationship with Glenn when you first joined the Oilers after being drafted by the Cougars in 1981?
We actually had a great relationship. And it was funny, before I got drafted, he came out to see 2 games, and both games I was awful. I think I got beat 8-1 and 9-1 in the 2 games that he came to see. So his first impressions probably weren't very good, but I mean, he gave me a fair shot at training camp. I mean, I didn't really think that I would stay in Edmonton my first year. I thought maybe I'd get a quick look and go back to Victoria, but he gave me a fair and honest shot to try and make the team, and everything kind of worked out pretty well.
Well, I'd say it worked out pretty well. I'm really looking forward to seeing the movie, as a lot of people are. As I said, you're very candid in it. You talk about a lot of different issues that aren't necessarily just the hockey ones or your favorite game or your biggest save or the trophy you remember the most. And I think that when something comes down like this, especially for Canadian fans and obviously very close in Edmonton, that this is a high point for you, is it not? This is maybe it's not a playing one, but it might be a pinnacle in terms of satisfaction.
I think it shows I'm comfortable in my life. I mean, you live life. And a lot of people kind of live a sheltered life and a guided life. I've kind of learned the hard way. You live life and you make some mistakes, and you got to figure out how to make it better. And I guess I've maybe done the mistake side of it a little more than most, but at the same time, life's still great.
Well, and I guess you got something, someone I know very well, Theo Fleury, has made a point of his life being available and, the movie and the book and so on, but just letting people know that certain things out there exist. It's not the perfect world once you become professional sports. It's not easy or the gravy train that people necessarily think it is. And, I look at, someone like Theo, who I'm sure, you two have probably talked about many different things.
We've had a few conversations. It's funny, at 18 years old, they don't hand you a book on life. I mean, you go through school and that sort of thing, and school doesn't teach you how to live life. It gives you some basic necessities, but at the end of the day, it doesn't teach you about life and all the mistakes you can make and the traps you can fall into. So, you have to live your life and learn from it.
Well, as I said, I'm looking forward to the movie. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know a lot of people are going to say, ask about the golf. Ask about the golf. So, the golf game, where are we sitting at, Grant? Are you sandbagging people? Are you taking money on golf courses? What's happening for you?
Oh, we're still managing to make $1 or $2, but no, still playing the stretch. And actually headed to the golf course as we speak.
Beautiful.
Surprise,
is the way life probably should be, Grant. Hey, you take care. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch up with you again sometime, Grant.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
That is Grant Fuhr joining us here on Raw. Mike Richards, heard also, of course, exclusively on Sportsnet, the Fan 960. That was a great time with him. Once again, when you see some of the issues that he's talking about, sometimes when these movies come out, Dave, that's why I asked, you're unsure if they wanted to talk about like everything. Like, do you really want to touch upon some of these really low points in his life? Well, just not unlike Theo. Theo wants to show the warts. He wants to show you exactly what can happen and how it happened. So in that way, you got to credit him for being brave on this one, because some guys just don't want to talk about that stuff.
By the way, that was a sold-out show, a sold-out documentary at TIFF, and unfortunately, we were not able to see that, but we will be seeing this sooner than later because it looks that good. Making Coco, the Grant Fuhr story, it is out, and man, I'm looking forward to this one.
Yo, absolutely.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup. You want to go do karate in the garage? Yup. It's time!
Well, we would like to thank Grant Fuhr for that time he had today. By the way, that was from California, calling from Cali. So that was very early his time, but as it so happens, he was on his way to the golf course, which I guess when you have that happen in your life, I guess things have ended up okay. So we appreciate that. Once again, the documentary, courtesy of Rogers Sportsnet, is Making Coco.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Tomorrow, a very cool story, Dave. As you know, Kevin Porter, who at an age you'd think he's maybe given up on his goal, maybe given up on playing professional hockey, he's got an announcement he's going to make here tomorrow. It's going to make everyone feel good. Because that's what we do. We're feel-good people.